Go live for.
Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete from Anxiety here. Welcome to today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get into today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete for Anxiety here on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. Before we get started today, I want to bring a little light to something I'm working on now. I am showing the Wrestle for the Cure 2016. What it is we're taking donations for St. Jude's. Me and the Best Ever Podcast and a few other people are having a contest. The winner takes home a title belt with the title, with my logo on it, or their logo on it. So, guys, if you want to donate, the link will be in the bio. You'll see it popping across the screen. But anyways, today, my guest is an accomplished author, inspiring figure. He has journeyed through life's tests and soared to remarkable heights. His story is one of the unwavering determination, resilience, and profound transformation that comes from conquering one's inner demons. As an acclaimed addiction recovery advocate, he is also the creator of the groundbreaking Flavor of Confidence sobermethod. Please welcome Massimo Rigotti. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Pete. It's great to be here today. And I've got a question for you. Who's winning today, Pete or the anxiety?
Pete's winning today, actually. So we're having a good day. We'll see what happens, though. Sometimes it's a, under David versus Goliath kind of moment,
That's what I wanted to hear. You seemed like you were in an upbeat mood, so I figured that Pete was definitely in
the
control.
Other person threw me off last week. He's like, "Hey, how's your mental health?" I was like, so why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself, give them a little feel for who you are. We, let them know who Massimo is,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hail from Lincoln, Nebraska. I was born where I am now, but life took me all over this great country, and it has been a fascinating journey. I often tell people that I have had a blessed life, and that is no lie, but it's also been absolute hell at some times, including living on the street homeless. But we'll get to that in a second. So I started out life as a precocious beast that just was out to tackle anything in the world, and grew up in a household that allowed me to really explore everything that I wanted to do. My dad took me under his wing and would take me to meetings and trade shows, and I was like his little sidekick. Oftentimes I see Elon Musk with little X, and that's how I kind of existed in the early part of my life. And that really had a great impact on being able to understand business and see interactions socially and business interactions that laid the groundwork for my life as an entrepreneur. After I graduated from high school, which was in the Kansas City area in Overland Park, I went to Kansas State University for about a year. I was just not too enthusiastic about my education because I had the calling of doing something else. And at that time, it was 1993 and telecom was deregulating. And I noticed that I could probably make a lot of money if I started working in telecom at this exact moment. So I did. I started buying mass blocks of time and selling them to businesses at a reduced rate. Most people don't know, but long distance at the time was about 40 cents a minute for businesses to call.
Remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
God, we're old. We're old. That just makes us feel older right there just talking about it, remember when we just finally got caller ID on our phones? Oh, that was a new one for us too.
Remember when I got the first answering machine? That's the one that's like, wait a second, you didn't have an answering machine as a kid? No, exactly, you ran to the phone.
You didn't have voicemail? Oh God, no. You heard that phone, you were taking off running.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was a race to see who could get to it first, right?
Right.
Those are great competitions that I remember with my siblings.
Right.
So that the call to do something else was just like within me. And at the same time, though, I was really starting to struggle in that first year of college. I didn't know what was really wrong with me, but I didn't feel like I had full control over what was going on. And I went to the campus psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed as mixed bipolar. And of course, they wanted to put me on medication. But being 18 years old, I said, oh, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything about it. I did notice that alcohol would curb the challenges anytime that I had them. And I managed to force it down and not be on any medication for the next 20 years of my life. So those things are probably worth looking at. But we also both grew up in a time period where looking at mental health was still a little bit of there was a stigma. There still is a stigma, but it's much, much less.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be known as someone who had mental problems. So I wasn't going to allow myself to be medicated for it. And that was the start of the journey in my long relationship with alcohol. And the challenge with alcohol, of course, is that once you start, you need more and more of it to get the same result. And that's exactly what happened to me. But as we continue the journey here, it was not done too often. It was just enough to allow me to function. So if I had a challenge, I'd lean into alcohol. But then it became, I'm going to go do this big speech, to a group of business executives. I need a shot. And I would lean into it anytime I had anxiety.
Yeah.
So it was the anxiety cure is we're going to drink.
Right.
And that isn't healthy either. I kind of fell backwards into the entertainment industry in the early aughts and ended up in Los Angeles representing talent. And when that occurred, that gave me open access to a lot more things that the Midwestern guy that I was had not seen before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It was like a candy store of all sorts of stuff that you could gain access to.
Yeah, it's like going to the corner store. You can just choose what you want. Oh, I like this. I want to taste of that. Let me try. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's incredibly dangerous for someone who's high functioning and probably borderline alcoholic already by that point, because I was drinking every day. I wouldn't drink to excess, but I was drinking every day. And so I would drink at lunch, I would drink at dinner. I might have a drink socially later. So there was probably 6 to 8 drinks that being had every day, but it was still being consumed out, not by myself alone or hiding it or anything like that.
Yeah, so you basically camouflage it almost because people didn't realize it looked like you were socially drinking, but they didn't know how many you had through the day. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Though. I mean, and then you yourself don't realize it because you're just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have a drink with these guys. I'm gonna drink with those guys, and they just start adding up, and then you don't realize where the problem is. You just see it as, oh no, I'm just socially drinking. I'm not really doing anything I shouldn't be doing at this point.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that the other challenge was the fact that I didn't have any noticeable decline in my abilities. So, like in any interaction that I had. As a matter of fact, there were a few people after I wrote my first book, which was a memoir of my entire existence to that point. They were like, well, hold on a second. You were drunk during that meeting?
Right. That's not really shocking. A lot of people say that too. When they hear people's stories, they're like, really? I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, because a lot of people don't tell you about it. Because if I were to tell you about it, I don't know how you're going to look at me from that point.
Yes, exactly. And that plays into what I do today, of course. But so I added cocaine into the mix while I was in Los Angeles. So then I became an alcoholic cocaine addict. And so then things became the ability to drink could increase dramatically because I would use cocaine to tamper the lows and that. And it became this great balancing act. And then it became just even more dangerous. But I left the Los Angeles scene in 2009 and headed back to the Kansas City area where I started a printing company. And I got married and things, I'm going to settle down, or so I thought. But instead, those addictions were like this huge weight that were, on my back, and I couldn't get rid of them because they had become so heavy and so great in that time period while I was interacting in my previous business that I didn't know how to get out of it. And I was also in this position where I had employees, I had business owners I was interacting with. how do you talk to anybody about this? The stigma of what I was going through was so great. And my wife didn't have any answers for me. So you don't have anywhere to turn to. So you're
Yeah.
left trying to figure this all out by yourself. And that's where I was at. Uh,
Yeah, I
and
believe it though. Think about it because trying to talk to anybody, but because you like, "Oh, listen, I'm drinking alcohol for that." It's almost like you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street right, at the beginning where
oh
he's
yeah.
talking about all the shit he was just balancing out, and everybody's just like, probably like, "Whoa, hold on." It's like that conversation. You're like, "Yeah, well, take a little alcohol for this, a little cocaine for that." You're just like, and they're just gonna look at you like, huh? Wait, what did you just say? Because a lot of people, when it comes to that stuff, don't even experience any interactions with people that have done harder drugs like that. Alcohol, okay, everybody knows alcohol. Everybody knows like marijuana, things like that.
Yeah.
But when you get to that real heavy stuff, I don't think a lot of people have met people that have actually interacted with that. Now you've heard people that have had experiences with it, but most people don't think even know what the heck half that stuff is or how to identify a lot of this stuff or anybody that's been on that kind of stuff, so for you to tell them that, they'd be looking at you going, huh, what?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you talking about? What is that? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a drug, it's like you try to explain to somebody like you're fire, it's like a caveman and seeing fire for the first time, or that shot kind of thing, and it's really not. And then as for the 90s, God, dude, I can't even imagine. I know what it was like in 1950 because I had a guest on. He had said in 1954 he had told somebody he was sexually assaulted, and he told his therapist, and both of them just avoided the conversation completely. But then we have to remember though, they didn't know a lot then.
No.
Hell, they thought PTSD was shell shocked and only military
Yes.
people got it for the longest time, and then eventually we figured out that everybody can get it.
Yeah, very true. In understanding that, you bring it up, the Wolf of Wall Street really it hits home because there couldn't be anything that is closer to resembling what I started acting and existing like, behind the scenes, yet holding it all together in this public, larger than life image. And I think that's why so many people thought, oh, he's just a little creative this morning.
Yeah. And that's the first thing I thought as soon as you said that. I'm like, that's probably the best reference for most people to realize what you were going through, because it was the same thing. He was doing the balance act, but in the back scene, it was just a complete mess, but everybody else didn't see that because you projected that, everything was great, and no one really knew what you were dealing with internally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You nailed it. So I saw the wheels starting to come off, though. I realized that I couldn't hold this together much longer. I'm, in my late 30s. And it's just there's no way I'm going to hold this together. Yeah. So I went to my wife and I told her that I was going to divorce her because I could see that things were just not going to work out because I was in love with the drugs and alcohol, and that was not fair to her. And so we got a divorce. And then the business was starting to fall apart. And I remember telling all my employees once, shortly before it did, it's like, it's my company and I'll run it into the ground if I want to. Famous last words.
He's like, I'm taking this thing down. We're crashing one way or another. You're here for the ride, or you're getting out. I'll tell you now.
Exactly. That was actually kind of the talk. Either you're with me or get out right now. And
right.
And so then when that collapsed, it wasn't but just a couple months later, and I found myself out on the street homeless.
Yeah.
And that lasted for 16 months. That was a very difficult time, but you know what? You got to want it. And that's one thing I really learned when I was living on the streets, and you're fending for yourself and fighting for the next meal. And it's a really tough thing. So here I've gone from, in what I would say would be like almost the pinnacle of where you would want to be. Anyone dreams of having the types of lifestyle that I'd had. And now suddenly I'm interacting and trying to figure out what I'm going to eat, which dumpster has the best food at what time. These are actual thoughts that so
when you tell people that story about being homeless, I guarantee you got a lot of people look at you like, they look you up now and go, there's no way you're lying to me. This didn't really happen, because where you're now, a published author and things like that too. And it's like, yeah, I've been there. I could tell you what it's like, and I think that a lot of times that's how people really connect with other people, or really connect to you, is because they're like, well, damn, he's lost everything. This guy knows exactly what he's talking about, but then when you tell people that, they're still like jaw priced at the floor, like, wait, huh?
Oh, you have no idea. If I do not give my backstory, nobody would know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm the same way though too, though. I don't really share a lot about myself, and I'm gonna do a memoir as well about my own story about things, but there's a lot of things I don't tell people. I tell little tidbits of it.
Mhm.
I've told a little more of it recently, but I haven't told it all, man. Like exactly what's going on, all the things that are going on, because people look at me in a different way. They're like, "Oh my God," but they have to realize that these are the things that happened in the past. These don't continue to happen now. These are the things that happened that led up to the events I'm at now because I don't have a great relationship with my kids. And there's a reason why. There's a whole chunk of the story that doesn't people don't know the exact things that happened. But when I tell them, like I guarantee some looks are gonna come. They're gonna be like, "What? Holy crap, I didn't know."
But it frames you in a new light, and
Hmm.
oftentimes a well, it increases the depth of the connection between you and whoever, because
Yeah.
I leave this part of my life out to any new person I meet. I never talk about it. It just slowly kind of comes out. And then they're
Right.
like, they'll Google me and they'll see that I have like an author panel on Google, and they're like, whoa, hold on a second. Didn't you mention you were an author? I've known you for a couple months. I'm like, it didn't seem important.
Yeah.
Like
Well, because you don't know how some people are gonna react. They're like, "You're an author, okay?" So some people don't even read books. They're kind of like, "Oh, what's that?" So it's
yeah.
like, why go into this subject if you're not even interested in, not even talk to you about it? I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So but it is really an important in the work that I do now,
Yeah.
and as a confidential recovery specialist, because in doing that work, I can relate to anyone who's come up all the way from the bottom, or someone who's about to crash into that rock bottom scenario, and coach both directions as like,
Yeah.
okay, I've been where you're at and you're going to crash and burn, or, hey, look, I came back, you can come back. This isn't the
Exactly.
end, and arguably I'm in a better position now than I have ever been in my life, and on all
So
levels.
So let me ask you this question. Would you say that the hitting rock bottom was the way to make you achieve more because you were already at the high proverbial level that you wanted to be, but then you came down and had to rise back up kind of like a phoenix. You think that rebirth part is what really did it for you? You think that was, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that's what the critical point in your life you needed was that 16 months to realize that, you got to change the way and look at things from a different light?
Absolutely. It totally allowed me to I had something unique happen to me that most people don't, and that's how I like to frame that when I
Yeah.
coach people, is that you have the ability right now. Nobody believes that you can stand up. I remember my dad telling me after I had hit some milestone. I don't even remember what it was. It was a sobriety milestone, and I had managed to get some traction and was starting to make some money again. And he said, "You know what? I'm so proud of you, because all I thought was ever going to become of you was maybe a Walmart greeter." And
Oh,
I
geez.
and I was like, "Wow!" And I
At
mean,
least they gave you Walmart, he could have said
yeah,
something else, but at least it's Walmart, man, okay? He went up high class. He said, "Forget it, let's go." He gotta be at least a Walmart greeter. Come on now.
I know, but here's a guy who had been my biggest fan, and had been there with me early in life, and so that was really a it struck me in such a way that allowed me to reframe everything, and
Yeah,
now look at everybody I work with in a new light, to tell them nobody believes that you're going to do anything. They think you're never going to amount to anything now. So
yeah,
you can do anything you want. You want to change careers, you want to do something entirely different, you want to not do this, you want to live someplace else. This is the time to do it, because you can really reconstruct yourself, and you're not
yeah.
starting over. You're starting from a point with a ton of experience, knowing what not to do with your life.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it, though, because that's what it was like with this podcast. I started this, and people are like, "Oh, you sound so intelligent." I'm like, "But is it really though? Maybe I had something to tell you, and you just didn't listen to what I said." Because that's the thing is though, like I could agree that 100% because I was younger. I was an angrier kid. I was always
Mhm.
really mad at things. I had a lot of things going on in my head, and I always denied it for the longest time that I had problems until about a year before I started this podcast. I basically um had not dealt with the problems in it. And, like I said, when the whole story comes out, people are going to understand more about it because a lot of it affected how I interacted with people. In my ex and I, when we split up, I had taken my three kids on my own. And I'm a single dad trying to raise three girls. And it was chaotic for me because like one of them was becoming a woman. So then I had to deal with that scenario. And it's just more layers and layers and layers because, boys and girls operate differently. So, I had so much going on, and those poor kids would through so much with me because they saw me just coming down. I was going down hard, and I denied it to myself for the longest time, that that's what was happening. So, but now I do this, and a lot of people come up to me and they're just like, "Oh man, I heard your podcast," and it's still so real though. My own family members listen to this. My stepbrother's my biggest supporter though. He's the one that's donated the He made the new logo for me. He sent me some, other equipment and things like that too. And it's like we never really had these interactions early on. I didn't really talk much of them after I left Chicago. I never really talked to anybody. I just kind of did my own thing for a bit, and I was always so bitter, but I couldn't figure out what I was bitter about. But then when I figured it out, now it's like this show from the beginning to where I'm now is usually the evolution of me, because I start learning more about myself and other things I pick up along the way too. So it's been great.
That's really fascinating. And it also plays back into what a fundamental belief I have in that every single, and you're alluding to it, so I'm going to go with it and believe that this is probably true, is that you generally can track back the challenge that you're facing to one event in your life. And then how you play everything that happens after that one event in your life can impacts literally every decision you make and how you frame the world. And that trauma that occurred, it shifts your mindset forever until you're able to rewire it and say, wait a second, why am I letting that impact me at all?
That too. And the fact that where you had said that people look at you from a different light now, knowing your backstory to now. And it's like, that's really what it is now. I have to go against the grain for a lot of people that knew me prior to doing this. So when I told them what I do now, a lot of them are like, really? My own dad has been a big supporter, and I didn't know a lot of things about him. But after doing this show, he started revealing a lot of things that I didn't know. We were on a trip doing to a memorial for my godmother who had passed away a few months ago. We went, and he started sharing some things too. And it was just so weird because all of a sudden he just started, like, this man I've known all my life doesn't really say much about himself, started telling me about some of the things he was dealing with too. He's like, "Oh, you see these scars?" And he was telling me of the story behind it. "Oh yeah, I tried a few times and things." And I was just sitting there going, who the hell is this guy sitting there? Because when I remember as a kid, he would never really say much about it because I didn't really see him much as a kid. He worked a lot of nights and things, so I didn't really interact with him as much. And I spent a lot of time by myself, and he would sit there and he was telling me things I've known. And a lot of people do that now, man. It's crazy because now they know what I do. They come up to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, listen, I know you handle some of these conversations sometimes. So I know I can talk to you about this." And I'm just like, "Okay, cool." What's about to happen? Okay, cool. Here we go. So it's I can relate to your story 100%, where you have to tell people, after they see everything and then go against that grain. I mean, it's rough, but I mean, at the same time, you got to remember that all these people saw you that way. So don't get mad when they start referencing back to that, because that's what they remember seeing.
Yeah. And that's I look at it as a point as I'm trying not to be selfish about projecting what I'm up to now and a lot of people have said to me, "Why aren't you pushing hard into your huge network of people to try to promote yourself more?" And I'm like, you know what? There are plenty of people who don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go focus on them, and everybody else will eventually figure out and find out what I'm doing. And when they do, it will take that natural course. And then things like you're talking about with your dad. And by the way, that's fantastic.
I was shocked, honestly. I'm going to be honest. I was shocked. He started telling me some things and I was just like, huh? And we're just sitting there. He's just casually about it, like he normally is, just real casual, talking about stuff, because my brother works in the mental health field too. So, he and I talk all the time. And then, like I said, my older brother, who I didn't really have a real big relationship with because he was my stepbrother. He lived with his mom. So we'd see him on the weekends. But after that, we didn't really interact as much. But then for him to message me one day and be like, "Hey, listen, I've been listening to your show." I was just like, "You've been listening? Okay." And he's like, "Hey, listen, we need to refresh your logo." Things like that. He asked for some advice because he's a big entrepreneur. Things like that too. So it was really cool actually, because it happened on my anniversary. He had sent me a message and I was at a casino and he's like sending me messages and I'm looking at him like, "Hey babe, check this out." I was showing my wife, like, "Look," and then he's like, "Yeah, you need some new equipment." And he sends this thing to me, goes, "Oh, okay, it's on the way, it'll be there." And I show my wife, I go, "Yeah, I got a whole setup now of things I got to figure out how the hell to even use."
Well, that's just fantastic. It's great to have a fan and it to be someone who truly believes in you and is a family member, right? And your new logo is really sharp.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was. The first one was real sentimental to me though, because my wife and I, when we were dating, I sent her that picture originally, the non-stylized one, and then she sent it back. And when the original show started, was actually because of her, because me and her had an interaction. that caused me to really reflect really fast and go, wait a minute, I'm freaking out on somebody who's been supportive since day one through all the crap I've been through and all the other shit I've, was doing. She's still here. Like, how am I can't let this fracture something when someone here has been so supportive of me. And that's why the picture was so sentimental. And then he was like, here, this one. I was like, okay, well, I really like this one too. I'm going to keep that one for the back and I'm going to take that one and run with it. But it's like, and he's like, yo, just consider like a sponsorship. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to call it, it's fine. I don't care. I appreciate it greatly because I love the new design too. Everybody does too because I started unveiling it to everybody. It's like, yeah, here you go. Check it out. This is a new redesign of things. And they're like, oh, I love it. It's awesome. I'm like, I do too. I think it's great. And plus it's sentimental because, he's the one that gave it to me. And, and it was like just somebody, just a completely random stranger come up to you and say, hey, listen, I love what you do. And I still hear people tell me all the time, like different people I don't talk to, I haven't seen in a while, come with me and go, hey, I love what you're doing, and things like that. So it's so interesting, these interactions I'm having now with people, and at first I didn't talk much about myself, like I could reach out to these never people I knew. I just talked to new people all the time. There's in fact a gentleman that comes in. He's like, hey, listen, I like the show. I've been listening to it, and everything. And I was like, awesome. I'm glad you like it. Just let me know if you're, I'll let you know if anything really good comes across, like really big that you might want to check out, and it's interesting, when people find out I run a podcast, like, you run a podcast? I'm like, yeah, what's it called? And I'm always talking about, yeah, I do tell my friends online when I'm playing games too. There's a couple guys who ran into last night. One guy was like, hey, yeah, you're the guy with the beard and the bald head in the picture. I'm like, yeah, that's me, dude. He goes, oh, that's right, man. I remember who you. It's so funny too. He's like, he used to describe me to other people. I'm like, okay, there you go. Did my job. If you start talking about it for me, I don't have to say anything. Okay. And then, people are asking me questions about, hey, what should I go check out? Like they always ask you what episodes to check out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all my guests are great. It depends what your area of thoughts are, what you like. Like I could suggest certain people to you to check out to get you started. But I enjoy everybody that comes. Everybody that comes, I'm always grateful. And I told them, like, I've had more people in the top 3% in their podcast series come on this show, than a lot of people can say they've ever had on their shows and things like that too. And I'm humbled for that. It's great. But it's so cool people. So I don't value anybody, but there are top fives I have, like people I've really enjoyed conversations with and things like that too. So it's not to say I outrank them, but it's just, it's just so surreal to say that I've had all these people to this point. I'm not even a full year into this thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, sorry if you hear the sirens going, but there's a huge fire truck running down the road.
I was going to say, dude, is everything okay over there? Like, listen, it's all right, guys. The whole background's on fire. You're like, it's all right, guys. I'm doing all right over here.
With the fire alarms going off in the building.
So let's get into the sober method. How did you come up with that? And it's abbreviated, right? Is it not? It's sober S.O, all the way down,
yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, it's an abbreviation. Well, let's backtrack just a little bit, and you had almost the perfect transition for me to latch onto here, so I'm going to take it because you talked about your wife and how she was instrumental in all of her support and guidance and everything. Well, at the peak of my addiction, right before I lost everything, I was on a trip with some friends in Destin, Florida, and on the beach, I met a girl, Samantha Allison Thomas, and we hit it off immediately, and yeah, we were pretty much inseparable after that. She saw something in me. And that very first night that we were together, we were out. And she's like, you know what? I don't think you need to drink to be incredible. Yeah. And I just looked at her. I'm like, who the hell are you? And what do you think? Where do you get off saying something like that to me? It just like struck me as almost too much, but then I wondered if there was a reason why I was hearing this, and she must have just caught me at the right moment in my life to be okay, I'm listening. And so when I ended up on the street and didn't have a phone, didn't have anything, I had a PO box, and Samantha would write me letters. She was in Alabama going to college, and here I am living on the streets, and she became like my therapist by mail, for the lack of a better description of how that relationship continued after I no longer could visit her. And she never left though. She stuck it out with me. She'd write me letters, ask me to reflect on different things. I would write her back. One time I wrote her a letter with like everything that had triggered me to drink the previous week. Yeah. And she wrote me back. Seriously, it was on a postcard and it said, drink every other time. It was her advice that week. And I took those things to heart because my family had abandoned me as well. I was literally all alone except this person who was out in the wilderness willing to guide me. And so as I stood up sober on March 23rd of 2016, I was going to AA and NA, and oh yeah, this is great, this is fantastic. But you get down that path for a little bit, and I find that I'm not alone in this. The longer that I've been sober, is that I started thinking, is this it? This is pretty boring. If my goal is just to be sober and I'm going to talk about things I used to do all the time, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to tell people that I am an alcoholic when I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic, I've got to put this behind me. There's got to be something better. There's got to be something different. And that's when I came up with what originally was the Flavors of Confidence method, and looking at the fact that the confidence is that underlying thing that keeps everything else at bay. Because if you're confident in your skin, you're confident in your abilities, you're confident when you walk into a room, you never feel like you have the anxiety that will overtake you. And that, at least for me, that need to drink or to use drugs, because anxiety was that thing that would creep in and push and require me to, like, this will just be that social lubricant.
Yeah.
So it started out as the 10-step method. And as I started working with people and telling people, in meetings, like what I was doing, because I wouldn't go to AA as often anymore, they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then people started using it. And Samantha was encouraged me. It's like, you need to write a book and share this, because it seems like it's really something that would work well. And then on August 1st of 2020, she was murdered by a drunk driver.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Just shy of her 25th birthday. And she was about to graduate from med school too. So it was just absolutely tragic. We're coming up on 5 years here in a couple weeks. And everybody that knew that she was a part of my life was immediately at my side, making sure that I didn't drink. They were all, and you know what? I had nothing more than a fleeting thought. Instead, I was nearly immediately, okay, how am I going to honor her legacy? She helped me get sober. How am I going to help others do what she did for me? And that's when I doubled down and I wrote my first book, which is Flavors of Confidence. And then the second book is Flavors of Confidence, Sober Method, because once the 10-step deal got out and more people read the book and I started coaching people more seriously, I realized that it was clunky. I was having a tough time keeping track of my own method. And if that's the case, how am I ever going to market this to be better? So I went back to the drawing board and I thought, oh, let's name it the Sober Method. And of course I thought, well, there's no way sober can be available. It's 2023, but sure enough, it was. And I took every action to immediately lock that down trademark wise. And so today we have the Sober Method. It's a 5-step continuous improvement method. It stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore. And it works like the Deming cycle. And where this comes from is that I had the wild belief that in the original Flavors of Confidence method, that I could look at my mind as a machine where I could tinker with little things and improve those things and then go work on another thing. And if I slowly did that time and time again, I would be able to completely improve myself. And so that's how it works. I mean, at a very high level.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So because I was looking at it, I was like, and then I saw the sober method, and then I saw it was broken down in little, individuals. I was like, yeah, this has got to be abbreviated for something else. And I think it's so interesting that you went from 10 to 5 steps, though, because usually you had the 10 flavors of confidence, and then it's just, these 5 steps. Okay, these are the 5 core beliefs and things that work really well. And I think that's really cool, though. So when you were explaining that to people, did people take it a lot better, though, with only 5 steps? Because they know with 10, I'm sure they're like, oh, Jesus, 10, this is a lot of tasks to do. But 5 makes it a little more digestible for them.
It does, and it's easy to remember because the steps literally tell you what I'm working on right now. Stoicism, okay? Well, in the Stoic step, you're looking at that holistic thing, and so it's a reflection. And the recommendation here is like starting with meditations by Marcus Aurelius is my go-to here. It's like, pick something out. Like we'll do something that everyone knows, like the obstacle is the way, right? So whatever the challenge is, we need to charge through the challenge rather than try to go around it. And so what would that look like in real life? And it might be, well, this is a trigger I face every time I see this individual. They're causing me challenges and I want to drink. Okay, well, then we're going to try to look at why that's happening and reflect on that. And then you go, that's into the observe step where you're like literally behavior chain analysis on this. Just like, okay, when I have a tough meeting, that's my cue. And then I want the distraction. And then I need to pour a drink. And that drink becomes a routine because most of our lives are just habit. You don't actually necessarily need to go for that drink. It's just become a habit that whenever it'd be like, every time I see Pete, I'm going to take a drink. I don't even know why I do it anymore because Pete and I are friends. He used to be my, you know what I mean? But like you get into these patterns. We all do it.
Yeah.
And so once you have that observation down, you understand what's going on, then you go into the behavior step, which is literally looking at your existing behavior and how you might adjust it. So instead of doing this, I'm going to do this. And okay, that should work. You know, it's you're playing this out. It's like this mind game of what I'm going to do the next time that I see you. And then you go into execute. Okay, let's test it. I'm going to go see Pete right now. Oh, okay. I'm playing this out. Everything looks good. I'm fine. Oh, wow. My new system is going to work. And if it does, you go on to the restore step. And if it doesn't, you go back to observe. You try to figure out, okay, well, what went wrong? And this is how you deal with relapses, because I try to be very forgiving in relapses in my method, because I think it's so important. It happens to everybody. And rather than beat yourself up, which is what some of the other programs teach you, you should beat yourself up and be really, it's like, that doesn't work. Why did it happen? I
think you make a really good point, though, just to cut you off really quick, is that when you say that don't beat them up when they get that, because that's the advice I give to other people too. Because somebody had asked me that said, oh, my girlfriend's trying to get, sober again. And I said, listen, man, if she messes up, do not blow this out of proportion for her. Understand she is struggling to even get to that point. It's hard because once you're hooked, you're hooked. Just think of any kind of addiction you have. There's anything in general. It's hard to cut that out, but if you end up relapsing, don't make it like a big deal. Be very supportive. Like, let's understand things happen. Don't go in there and just start browbeating her down, because you're not going to get anywhere with that. You're going to push her to continue to say, well, fuck it, I don't want to do this no more, because all you're going to do is shit on me every time something happens.
Oh, yeah. And once you get the fuck it's, it's all over.
You know what I'm saying, though? It's like, it doesn't make any sense for you to sit there and browbeat her, because he asked me about it. And it's the same thing. It's like, well, you talk to people like this all the time. Let me ask you this scenario. And it's like, well, let me tell you first advice. And I can tell you right now is that if something happens, don't make it more bigger the situation it is. If she's upset, console her. Don't make her feel bad for something that's going to happen regardless. It's going to happen. It's hard. These guys, are so used to these things they're doing. They're going to come back and slip up, but just don't make it like the world's coming to an end kind of thing, and browbeat her and make her feel so bad about it that she's just like, well, forget it. I'm not going to try. Encourage her, like, hey, listen, that's okay. You'll get it. You got it. Just take it with stride. Take the positives from the negatives. Don't sit there and just keep throwing more on top, because I'm sure she already in her head is just already upset because the fact that she just slipped up again, and now she's got to tell you, and I've had somebody deal with that too. They were afraid to tell me, but then they told me, and I was just like, hey man, it happens. Nothing you can do about it. It's already a done with situation. I mean, blow it out of proportion, I could, but what's the point? You're not going to get anywhere with it.
Yeah, it's so true. I liken relapse to having a stuck car and you have to rock it back and forth. I mean, you get restuck, you almost get out, and then you think you're out, and then you roll back in, and you're like, ah, dang it, and so you start rocking the car again. And that's exactly what the end step is. Once you really have decided you're going to be sober, it's like it's back and forth, and then finally you get out and you're unstuck. And once you're unstuck, it's relatively easy to stay unstuck, but that's why relapses sometimes can happen 3 to 4 months down the road. And you're like, why did that happen? And it's okay, fine. Let's look at it. I mean, what happened that day? Let's break it down. Yeah. Oh, this happened. Well, I guess we better try to figure out how to deal with that. And it'll be something obscure that they hadn't thought about that was tied to their past trauma and how they react to it. Everything that we have within our minds can be overcome if you think about dealing with it differently.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree 100% with you, though, because I was there at one point. I was drinking a lot too. I was nowhere near any of where a lot of these other guys were at, so I could relate a little bit. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's like, you used to hear them 4, 5, 6 months down the road, they just start freaking out. Oh, well, I slipped up. Okay, you slipped up. What's the problem? It happened. What were you doing? You like you said, break it down. What happened? What were you doing at the time that you accidentally just slipped up? Did you get wild? Okay, if you didn't, all right, cool. More power. That's good though. Look at the positive though. You didn't get into this raging alcoholic state that you're at. You had a drink. You slipped up. It's the world's not going to come to an end. I'm not going to sit here and be the avalanche that falls on you. Oh God, you drank again, and just it's going to happen. It's just how it goes with this kind of thing, And after talking to enough sobriety coaches and people that have been through it, though, it's like you hear the same thing. It's like, oh, well, I slipped up. I had to slip up. Okay, cool. It happens. Like it's just there. It's gonna happen. Just don't beat yourself up about it. I mean, like, look, like you said, go back and analyze. Okay, so what happened that I got myself into this situation? Where should I cut it off that we didn't have to have this relapse of a problem to happen? Don't. And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people. Is like they don't know how to deal with people with addiction because a lot of them are self-destructive, And depending on who you talk to, some people are like, well, you just got to let them self-destruct. And I'm like, I don't know if that's really the case. So, because some people, when they hit rock bottom, you don't know what they're going to do next. They may unfortunately take their life for all we know. They hit that bottom and think, okay, well, there's nothing else left here for me. That's it. I'm done. And, and you don't want that. So, I mean, I guess, I understand everybody has their own opinions when it comes to me. I just don't think like letting people hit that rock bottom a lot of times is a great idea for them because some of them don't come back up from that bottom.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. If it can be avoided, and I think it can, and I've successfully done that with people I've coached, is if you can avoid the rock bottom, it's definitely better.
Yeah.
Yet you have to have a really set regimen path up from wherever you're at. I mean, like if you're on a steep decline, you have to have an answer and a plan and follow that plan like exactly, or you will keep sliding. You'll keep, I mean, you're going to crash and burn. And so that requires a commitment level that oftentimes I think as you're in that slippery slope down to the bottom of those hard rocks, sometimes I think that you start wanting to hit the rock bottom. And I say that because that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I talk about this in my first book. It's like, I was determined to have the greatest crash and burn ever. I actually got that in my mind. And I was like, I'm just going to make sure
it's
that
like
this
fireworks and everything are going to show up, man. I got this.
Exactly. I was like, here, hold my whiskey.
Yep. The proverbial here. Hold my beer. Let me go show you how to do some crazy shit at this point. Yep.
Exactly.
Hey, I've been in those situations before. There's one I can remember. I ended up 15 miles away from where the original spot was I was at. I don't remember how I got there. I was so drunk. I was sitting outside this store, and luckily no one picked me up for public intoxication because they knew who I was. And I was like, that's even worse. Like when you know the people and you're there, you don't know how you got there. And I was like, well, hey, assholes, y'all let me leave. Like, what were y'all doing? But it was just, I have some wild stories I haven't told people about. That's one of them, but there's one of them where I ended up making it like 40 miles away. I drove down a main highway and I don't even remember how I even got home. I think in fact, my dad found me out by the pool, just sitting in the lawn chair, and he was yelling at me. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like, he's freaking out because he's like, I knew you said you're going to a party with some friends because you were leaving to do whatever, and you're having a go away party because, and then all of a sudden I find you here. He's like, I didn't expect you to be home to sometime later today. I was like, I don't even know how I even got here, honestly. And everybody was calling me. Someone's phone was in the back. It was like one of those real bad like teen movies where somebody does something stupid and their phone's stuck in the car, and all these like the series of unfortunate events started happening, and people were calling the phone, and they're like calling my phone, and somebody called them from another phone. Goes, dude, where the hell are you at, man? We can't find you anywhere. It was almost like The Hangover, where they're looking for Doug, and Doug's on the roof the whole time.
Yes,
I'm gone. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember what happened. They're like, dude, you blacked out. This and that. These things. I'm just like, huh? And they're telling you about the series of events that are going on. And you're like, really? That's what happened? Like, dude, I don't even, it's all blurred to me, man. I have no clue. Like, yeah, dude, you were just like, and then they started saying I drank like a fish. So that whole thing kept going on for a while. And I was like, oh God, did you see Peter, man? He drank like a fish out there. I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Oh man.
And then the story started continuing, And then the story started continuing further. So then it's the telephone game. Oh, well, Peter did this. I did that. It's the story kept changing little by little. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Oh Lord, that's a good one, and it totally reminds me of something. I haven't shared this one. I don't think I've shared this with anyone. Actually, I had an instance like this where I left the bar and I headed in the wrong direction down the highway.
Yeah.
And
oh God.
I must have been smart enough. Ended up waking up the following morning in the middle of a cornfield when the center pivot irrigation system started sprinkling water into my sunroof that was open. And this was at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, where the hell am I? I was like in the middle of this field of corn. This was in the middle of July. So the corn's like all 8 feet tall. And I'm like, I had no idea where I was. And this is pre-GPS. So I'm like totally freaking out.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I guess I should try to get out of here. So I get out onto the road. I still don't know where I'm going. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go left. I get back to the highway and I realize how far away. I'm like, how the hell did I get here? And why did I go here? I must have had something in my mind. It's like, I need to get away because if I'm anywhere, I'm going to get arrested for being drunk driving.
Yeah.
I must have somehow had that thought in my mind, and that's where I went.
Yeah, there's a wild one that I've been telling you, but yeah, I'll tell you this one though. It got wild. We were out with this guy, and I just turned 21. Okay, so I was always the youngest person, and this other guy had a fake ID with us, so we all went to hang out with everybody that we worked in a restaurant. So anybody seen Waiting? The beginning of that movie, I could tell you right now, a lot of times it's just like that, except for it got crazier. So we were hanging out. And we all went to this bar they all were hanging out at. So the guy, me, and this one younger guy and an older guy we were with, the other guy was complete drunk. We had no idea. And like we've been drinking too, so we didn't know. We all just hang out in the car, jamming out to some music or whatever. Then he starts the car up, and I didn't realize how drunk this guy was. We end up somewhere near where the old Dallas Cowboy Stadium is over there in Irving, Texas. Okay, car broke down and everything. And this dude just like going completely nuts, and like we're just all just hanging out, like, oh yeah, he's okay. And then everybody's getting mad at us. I'm like, dude, we were drinking too. What do you mean? You're the ones that allowed us to leave with this guy. You know how drunk he was. You should take his damn keys away. Like we didn't know what he was doing, but he's like going on the road, freaking out. We're going high speeds on the road. We're flying out, and all of a sudden the car just kicks out, and it's like, oh shit. He's like, oh no, we're abandoned somewhere in the middle. We're in I don't even know where the hell we were at. We were at some gas station abandoned out there. Call this guy's mom to come pick us up. And then we eventually got home. We all went to sleep. Didn't talk about it. None of us talked about the situation, and the one guy, younger guy, we pulled over to a gas station we were stuck at. He was over there throwing up in the trash can. And it was just like everything that possibly could have gone wrong. They're like, and then when we showed back up again, everybody's like, what the hell happened to all of you? Like, you don't even know. They're like, you let him drive. I'm like, dude, I was not sober. What the hell are you talking about? I was drinking too. So I don't know what this guy's state of mind is. Like, I've never been around this guy before. I know when I work with them. I don't know how crazy he gets, but you guys allowed him to leave too. So you're all like, they're all throwing the blame on me. He's trying to say it's my fault that we allowed him to. I'm like, we were not in the state of mind to do anything. You all should have taken the keys away if you knew he was this wild. We didn't know, but it was the craziest thing. He like took you for the wildest ride of your life, like and I was just like, I could tell. I thought my life was flashing in my eyes because this dude was just flying down the highway at like 100 miles an hour. I was like, oh God, here we go. We're all having a great time out there. Somehow we didn't get pulled over. Luckily no cops found us because we would have all been done. That would have been it. We all would have been picked up for, intoxication because there was no way none of us should have been driving that car, and then everybody's blaming me. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Listen, why are you blaming me when I didn't know anything about this guy like that? You all knew exactly what he's like, and it's just like, everyone wants to blame you for everything. They're like, oh no, it's your fault. It's your fault. I'm like, my fault. Whoa, hold up. Listen, I'm not the responsible adult. This guy's old enough to be my dad. He should know exactly what the hell he's doing. But you all know he gets this drunk and he acts crazy, and I didn't really think anything of it at the time, because I was just like, all right, cool. I can finally hang out with everybody, But I've heard stories about some of these parties. Like we've had a guy, what did they say? One guy, he jumped over the railing and broke both his heels, shattered both his heels, flying over the thing. I was like, yeah, dude, that's a party I don't want to be a part of. I'm good. Thanks anyways, guys, and it's just like, it's crazy. But when that movie came out, a lot of people were asking me questions about like, oh, do you guys really do this kind of stuff here? The scene where they're like defecating the woman's food, doing all that weird shit to it. Do you guys do that too when we send things back? I'm like, no, dude. The fuck? That's like, it's a movie. Learn how to decipher between what reality and a movie is, because I don't know. We don't do that here. God, no. And it was so funny because people kept asking those questions about it. I'm like, no. Mm-mm.
The party aspect of Waiting, though, you could argue is relatively accurate.
It's pretty real. For what I experienced, it was even worse than that.
Yeah.
Okay. We won't go into full disclosure, but it get wild. There's some wild stories that have come from that. There's some that have come to work drunk still. One guy, in fact, he was going. We had another place across the way. He was going across the way in his break tossing back a few and then coming back to work, and you could just smell the alcohol coming off him. I'm like, bro, don't you know people can tell that you're drunk? He's like, oh, what do you mean, man? I'm good. I was like, no, you're not, bro. I'm like, I can tell. Like, if I can tell, I'm sure as well they can tell. You know how somebody hasn't noticed this or smelt it yet. He goes, oh, you can smell it. Okay, can we get some mints in there? And I'm like, oh no, stop, dude, please stop.
You're beyond mints.
I like, but you need mints, you need a shower, you need to wake, you need to do something, you need to stop. And he kept going over there because I think it was during the holiday season. He had taken another break and he went over there because we were all working like doubles and stuff, you know, working all day. He kept going over there and coming back and saying, hey man, I was next door doing a little drinking. I'm like, don't you think so? You can smell like Barney from The Simpsons, bro. I think we can tell at this point.
Great reference.
So we're at the part of the show. I don't know if you've heard this, seen this more recently. I've been asking people this question. Massimo, if your mental health had a song, what would it be?
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
It's a great one for people because people are like, kind of break it down to several. I'm like, you can break it down any which way you want. We have Rage Against the Machine from Susan Snow. I had another Middle Eastern woman tell me that Michael Jackson's Beat It was her song. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you in recovery, Sia's Unstoppable has definitely been a fighting song for me. And and she had her own struggles with addiction. That's definitely been a go-to for me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's funny when you ask me that question because they're like, they always say the same, they're like, damn, that's a good question. I know it is because it's interesting to hear people's responses to it, you know. And so far, I think Susan Snow has the best one. Rage. She's like, you're gonna make fun of me. I'm like, why? She goes, well, it's Rage Against the Machine. I said, who's gonna make fun of you liking Rage Against the Machine? Get out of here. That's the most. That was probably the most interesting answer today. Is like Rage Against the Machine. I'm like, all right, Susan, I see how you get it down. Okay, girl.
I'll tell you the first song that came to my mind though when you said it was Eve 6, Inside Out.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yep,
Yeah.
that was a good one. Mine was what is it? The God, I can't think what it's called now. There's a movie called Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's one of my favorite movies just because of the pure zaniness of it. But the beginning song is an actual band. I don't remember the name, but that just like my anxiety when it's kicking full throttle. It's like that. It's going real fast, you know. It's almost like the Ultimate Warrior for any wrestling fans. It's like that intro that's just constant streaming and going. That's just constant guitar riff. And then when I'm down, it's just numerous songs. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. I think Epiphany for Stain is the new one I've been using. You know, but there's so many different answers. When I feel down in the dumps, my depression kicks up. It's like Epiphany from Stain, or was it Wasted Years by Cold is another one too. A lot of times I'll reference as well that one. But you know, it's always so interesting to hear people's responses because I got the question from a friend of mine who runs a podcast, the shit that goes on in her heads. And she had asked me during my thing. I was like, this is actually interesting. Let me start asking people this question because I'm curious what your song would be. Yeah. So the other question I have for you now is that if you could break the stigma about mental health, anything you want, what would it be?
That you are what you used to be. I think that I would really love to break this whole stigma that whatever somebody was or however they acted in the past, that's who they are, that you cannot redefine or become somebody new. I'm living proof that you can. Anybody else who's found their sobriety and has stuck to it year after year, they're a different person. Give them a chance, give them a shot. Don't look back. And this applies not only to individual people, this applies to even our court system. You know, it's like totally stacked against people who really have made a change because all they do is they look back and go, oh, well, you had 3 DUIs at one point in your life, so I'm sorry, you kind of suck. You know,
it's crazy though, because it is like, just like you said, you have to fight your own, you almost have to fight your own mirror self though. You think about it, because you're fighting what you used to be versus who you are now, you know, and people keep looking back at how you were, you know, and it's hard for those people to change when you keep telling them, oh, you're this person. Well, understand they're making changes. You know, how about encourage them? Like, hey, great, I'm glad you're doing better. You know, don't keep reminding them of their mistakes because I'm sure they already know what their mistakes are. You know, and I think that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, we beat ourselves up enough. I think that we don't need anyone else adding to the fire. Encouragement at every turn. If you see somebody who's truly, genuinely trying to improve themselves, encourage them. A simple, hey, I've noticed that you've been working hard. Keep it up. That's enough. That is an amazing amount of encouragement to somebody who's trying to do something. They just want to be noticed.
You're acknowledging the fact. Yeah, exactly. Like you just said, you beat me to it. Yeah, exactly. Noticing exactly somebody's doing something like, hey, listen, they're doing real great. Those little bit of encouragements could save their life too, for all you know, because you don't know what people are thinking. You know, a lot of times you hear people when they take their lives, feel like, well, I don't know what they were thinking. We don't. That's right. You're right. We don't know what they're thinking. We didn't know what their thought process was. But that little bit of encouragement, you can make them feel like, okay, well, I'm being noticed. Somebody's noticing I'm doing something. This is awesome, you know. And some people don't have that mentality, you know, and other people are just like, well, I don't care, you notice or not, I'm changing. So if you like it, there's the door, you know. But not everybody could be as, you know, as strong as that. So sometimes that little bit of encouragement, you could make their day right there, you know. Like I always close out the show, always say, you know, like one kind of acts can save someone's life. You really could think about it, because that positive message or that positive interaction for that day, you could extend it even longer without even realizing that you just made somebody's day, and you made them feel like they're being noticed. Because a lot of times when it comes to the act of suicide, that's usually what it is. They don't feel noticed, you know. And even just complimenting your shirt, hey, listen, I like your shirt a lot, hey, I like your hairstyle, you know, right there, that's it. You could just make them feel great just there. That positive comment could just be the thing. So, you
It's
know,
leading with kindness, you know, and you can do that everywhere. Lead with a smile. How are you today? It just to complete strangers. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And some people will tell you to get lost, and other people will say, "I'm doing great. How are you?" Well, look, you've just
or
made
they
a
want,
new.
or option three, they just don't answer. They just walk past you like, oh, okay, all right. So you don't answer me. All right, fuck you do that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you're going to get both. But that one person that answers might. Yeah, it might do something for him. Hey, I was noticed today. There, you know, you're in a sea of people, especially in a big city. You're walking down the street in Chicago or New York. You know, it. Think about it. It's easy to be lost if you don't, if and feel unseen in a mass of people, which is wild to think of, but it's really easy to happen.
All right, guys. Well, as we start wrapping up, Massimo, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? I know you have all these social media sites and all these other things like I do. So what is the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me is on my website, sobermethod.com. As you just mentioned, I'm on all the socials. My handle is @sobermethod. You can find me on any of those. Reach out. I'm always at the ready. I answer all of my own stuff. So I also have a Reddit community that's Sober Method. So
awesome.
Interact with people out there as well. And it's anonymous out there. So I'm really happy to interact with people.
Definitely. You know, funny story, though, when you say that I answer my own messages, I had a friend of mine. Her name is Melissa Kim Corder. She does a lot of shadow work and things like that. She said that somebody got mad at her one time because she didn't answer her own messages sometimes. And I'm like, hey, guys, I'm going to make you jealous, but she answers a lot of my messages. But it was so funny because when you said that, that's the first thing I was thinking, because we had a 5-minute conversation about that. Like, you know, people get mad when you don't respond. And it's like, but depending how many followers there's 50,000 you and one of me. I'm like, I can only answer so many, you know, or whatever it was. And she's like, somebody got mad and wrote her a letter and said, well, I don't appreciate the fact that you're not answering me and your assistant's answering me. I said, well, sometimes it's not her answering you, it's the assistant. I can tell because I've had a conversation with her several times. And I know what a writing style, because in the beginning, me and her were going back and forth exchanging emails when I got her on the show the first time. So I know when it's her, and I know when it's not, but I understand, you know, she's got all these things going on, publishing books, working on all these things, you know, and people get so upset when it's not just a genuine you, but it's like, it's hard when there's so many people. When you amass such a big enough following, it's like you get lost. Your message gets lost in that sea of, you know, whatever. So be genuine, be authentic, you know, and, you know, just understand a lot of people don't have time to respond all the time. And don't feel like they're ignoring you, because they're really not. Like, I had a woman on the show that has like 20,000 plus followers. And how I got her on the show is I just made a comment about mental health and she responded back. And I was still even shocked that she said yes, you know. So it's so cool, though, that you're answering your own messages and things like that, too, you know. And I think people really enjoy that stuff. So thank you so much for coming, man. This has been a great conversation. I had a real blast and everything, too. Do you have anything coming down the line that you haven't told us about? Any future publications you're working on?
I'm actually working on a third book right now that deals with device addiction, because one of the wild things that's come about with Sober Method out is people have told me they've used it to curb their device addiction, which was fascinating to me. So I walked into that one.
That just means that we need to have you come back then. Definitely, for sure. See, look,
awesome.
Massimo's going to be back when the book comes out and everything. We'll get all the details figured out, man. But I'm definitely inviting you right now to come back. You bet. I don't know what the stages of the book are, but when you get closer to a date, let me know for sure. And then we'll get you to come back and we can talk about that book too as well. You know, get a little more promotion, because this has been great. I had a great time having you here, man. It's awesome. I appreciate you being here, guys. And as always, you know, I'm Pete for Society. I'm pretty much at X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to iHeartRadio, guys. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you could do could save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing out saying, hey, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?